Welcome to another episode of Maller Notes podcast. My name is William Maller. I'm glad to have you here for another discussion on topics that can be relevant to your career, your personal and professional development, and of course, the way you're leading your teams and managing your business. Today, it's a special episode. Some people have been commenting and mentioning they want to see some variation on the organization for the topic. So the content curation is super important, super relevant, but sometimes a deep dive can be interesting in some specific topics. And today is one of them. I want to deep dive you on a quick discussion, a quick overview about job interviews. How can you get better on job interviews? How do you can get more prepared? What to do with being nervous? What to do about all those thinkings and reflections after an interview? And of course, I want to bring a bonus tip that I think it's quite important and many people forget about it. But let's start from the beginning because the interview does not start with you walking to the room or joining the online meeting with the recruiter. It actually starts much before, right? And even before you go there, there's a strong chance that the recruiter already know much more about you than only your CV. That's at least what we see in a research from Resume Builder, a survey from 2023, and connected with a report from Business News Daily now from beginning of 2026, where impressively it's confirmed that around 85% of the recruiters say that they check and they see what the candidates are doing online. And at least 85% responded that they already rejected a candidate just because of something they found online about that person. So, of course, the number is quite impressive. You can have so many discussions about it. But the point here is, of course, how you can prepare even for this moment. You know, I've been creating a lot of content recently in my newsletter called You Visible, where I'm trying to show you, to showcase with facts, with data, that your presence online and offline, it says a lot about you. And it's super important that you understand who you are outside of your company walls. Because maybe you are great on some specific topics, maybe you are great on solving specific problems, but your interviewer or people looking for you online, they would never know that. So that's why your position, the way you're organizing your online visibility and the way you position yourself is so important. And this is not about deleting your profile or starting to change everything right now or just after this conversation. No, that's not the point. What is actually being judged according to the data is if the version that is online about you or what the social media is showing about you and all the content you create, if you create something, how much of that is connected with the real person in front of the recruiter. And this is quite crucial because, of course, when you're preparing for an interview, you're trying to create this perfect version of yourself with great answers, great storytelling. But how about the things I find when I Google you, where I try to discover more about you on social media? I'm asking this because there is one another number that is quite more uncomfortable, but it's also there in the research. 68% admitted that using social media they discovered something that they could not ask directly the candidate for many different reasons, like yeah, things about their lives, their religion, political views, how they position themselves on those political perspectives, how they react about something online, because depending on the role, this can be something for the culture of the company, but it's not legally correct, right? Well, the discussion only on this part, it's already like a massive. We can stay 1 hour here. We could bring different perspectives from from political point of view or even from a legal point of view. But I want to be a bit more pragmatic and not focus on the problem of the number here, okay? I want to focus on how you can be more prepared. Because if you search your own name on Google right now, on an anonymous page, what are you going to discover? Because you don't need to try to be an influencer to just be better positioned online. As I've been talking a lot in the You Visible newsletter, just the way you present your job in your like LinkedIn and other things, it already can say a lot about the kind of professional you are. But this is not the only thing that is important for the preparation for the interview, because you need to know about the company you're going to work, and of course you need to know how the role that you're going to have your interview is connected to that company in general. If you at least understand the business, what they are trying to solve, what is the kind of customer that this company has, what they are trying to offer for those customers, you already have a lot to be more prepared than just going there for the interview, right? And this is something that many people forget. They are going there, they are going to be interviewed to solve a kind of problem. You probably don't know yet all the details about the problem this role is going to solve. But if you research a little bit here, and maybe even AI can help you with that, if you research about the role, the description, all the insights you can get there connected to what is possible to discover about the company, maybe you can have some ideas on that. And of course, if you don't know, you don't know, it's okay. But the more you can be prepared to understand about the business in general of the company, that can be super valuable for your interview. Don't forget that the recruiter is trying to know everything about you that is possible to prepare good questions. So it's good that you also know something about the company to ask also some good questions to see if that is a good fit for you or not. And finally, when it comes to prepare, I want to talk about getting nervous, because this is normal. That is part of the game. It's almost impossible to avoid being nervous before an interview. I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago. He has been speaking, around the world, public speaking for almost 30 years. And I was asking him, like, do you still feel nervous? Do you feel something when you're going there on the stage? Because every single week you go to some different places, you talk in front of hundreds or thousands of people. Do you still feel that anxiety and all the nervous feelings that come before that going to the stage? And he said that yes, even after almost 30 years, he still feels something. The things change over time, he said. The more you do it, the more confident you are about the content, the more confident you are about your storytelling, the more confident you are about what you are going to do that is under your control. And that part, maybe he's not that anxious anymore, but he's still considering like how the people on the crowd will react, how people will connect with the idea, how much of things can happen that would be a surprise. So being nervous is part of the game, but there's one thing that can help you with that. And I know some people don't like it, I know some people criticize it, but the more interviews you do, the more prepared you are, for sure. So even though you are not trying to look for something new right now, maybe you're super happy in your new job, you don't want to change, maybe just finding some opportunities around you to try to validate how well your profile is fitting, how prepared you are for an interview, how good is your storytelling about the cases you have to share. Just joining some different process can be quite good for you, because let's say you do 2 or 3 interviews per year, not looking for something, right? The next time you're in the need for something, you were at least 3 interviews more experienced and more prepared than you were before. That's why being concerned about joining some of those process could be quite interesting for your preparation and to getting making you be less nervous as well. And finally, the last thing on preparation, it's about the stories that you have. I already mentioned in my content that I have an notebook in Evernote just to write down some stories about the things that I achieved, project that I finished. So when I'm preparing to an interview, I like to read some of those, because that helps my mind to remember all the things I've been doing in the past years of my career. And when I'm going to reply something, that can be a great connection to bring an example on how I solve things, how I achieve things, how things failed when I was working with them, how did I solve that. So those things can help you a lot to have a good preparation from your journey, and what everything that you can tell about your journey, about the things you did during the interview. Great. So that is about the preparation. And then the day comes, and the first things almost everyone has already heard about it is it's probably wrong. It is true. I mean, first of all, we hear a lot about or facial expression, right? Or body expression, how we put ourselves when we are speaking. There's even a famous number that is 7, 38, 55. Have you heard about those numbers? 7% is in your words, 38% in your tone of voice, and 55% is your facial and body expression. This actually comes from two studies that were presented by Albert Mehrabian in the 60s, actually. So it's quite an old study. And of course, as every single classic study, it has a problem. The problem in this one is that the study measure very specific situations, people who were judging feelings from someone who was speaking. So, over time, over decades, the same author of the studies actually tried to fix that. He tried to say that this kind of division, putting all this effort, almost 93%, in how you position yourself, how you put your tone of voice, all those things, it's not actually realistic to every single moment in your life when you are speaking. So there is a balance here that you need to understand. Because at some points, it's important that you have more energy. That is important that you have more human presence in the way you speak, the way you position yourself. But many moments, it's much more about the content of what you are saying, about the story, about how well you can explain how you solve things, numbers, things that you did over your career. So it's not, if you put 93% of an interview in body language, it would be quite hard for an online interview or even a phone interview to work, right? That's why you need to understand that everything counts, but you need to be concerned more about your preparation to be yourself, and of course know what you're going to say, and not trying to train your body the way you are positioned when you're speaking on something. You just it needs to feel natural on who you are, because that is also something important for your interview. You're being interviewed by who you are, not for this perfect mask that you're trying to use during the process. And it is not the body that is speaking louder or the voice. In the end, is the connection of it all. Because if you are saying to the interviewer how much you love something, how much passion you have for something, or how much you want this role, you are saying this, but your body, your expression is not saying the same, then it is a problem, because you're not being true to what you are saying. So the thing here on body expression, on facial, is much more about being connected to who you really are, and being true to what you are saying. Because if you are trying to fake it, there's a strong chance that maybe you are just trying to be perfect, and exactly because of that, you are doing something wrong in front of the interviewer. The other thing I want to mention about the process of during an interview, it's be aware that things can happen. Sometimes you're going to start to speaking, and the interviewer, the recruiter, is going to make an expression. You get nervous because of the expression. Maybe it means nothing, but you get nervous. Maybe you lose your words a bit. Maybe you're going to don't remember that well about a story you want to mention, about a project that you finished, something that you solved. That is part of the game. That happens all the time. The interviewer, the recruiter on the other side, and I know because I've been doing interviews with candidates over the past few years as well, they know, we know, everyone knows that this moment, it's a critical moment for that person. They have like 45 minutes, 1 hour to package all their career, reply good stories, be concise, but at the same time bring everything of the best version of themselves. And it's hard. It's hard, I know. But one thing that can help you a lot, again, back to what I was saying on the preparation, is that the more you know the stories that you have to tell, the projects you work, the more you are able to recap them, the better for your interview be more relaxed because you know what you have to say. You know what are the examples you can bring. So back to the interview, you see that everything here is connected. The more you are able to have this kind of data set of stories and projects and things that you can remember, like what you worked 10 years ago that can connect what the interviewer is saying right now, the better for you. So I know that this is maybe somehow hard to get started depending on the stage you are in career, but just get started. Starting taking notes on project that you finish, stories that you have to tell, things you solved, not for the interview, for yourself. Because if you do that, you have those things to get you more prepared before an interview. And if you remember just a few of them during the interview, you are going to feel much, much more comfortable to explain, to bring situations, to bring examples of who you are. And finally, on the connection of the interview, I have one bonus tip that I will bring to you in the end. But stay with me, please, because now I want to discuss some of the things that you can do that will improve your job interview process in general a lot. And I'm talking about the things you do after the interview. First, I want to bring some data here again because I think this it's quite relevant when it comes to the moment after the interview, and it quite surprised in a good and a bad way at the same time for me. It's a data from Career Builder with over 3,000 employers over the world around the world. It's a research that was conducted, and they found out that 22% of the hiring managers say that they are less likely to hire a candidate who does not follow up or send some thank you message after the interview. 22% is not that much, right? The problem is the next number. 86% confirm or they agree that when they have two candidates that are super good, super great, they are almost on the same level, the candidate who sent like a follow up or a thank you message after the interview or just something, they can be the one choose just for some connection that is stronger compared to the other one with the, you know, the whole of the candidate. The point here is maybe the most important to mention about this number is it does not mean that saying thank you or sending a message after the interview will get the job to you. Okay. I think this is the most important thing that you should know. This is not like something that will decide if you take the job or not. The most important thing is who you are during the interview, who you are during the process, how much you are going to fit this role. Even though you are great in the interview, maybe you're not going to be the chosen one because you are great, but it's not a great fit for that specific role. And that's something that is important for you to know. But I would say that after the interview, the most important thing is not between you and the company. The most important thing is between you and yourself. It's how you learn with that interview, how you learn with that process. I've been doing that for years, and I would say that this is probably the most important thing I do to improve how well I react and prepare myself for future job interviews. I divide it in 5 parts, but it's basically about doing a lessons learned meeting with yourself, which is great actually. The first part is basically taking pen, paper. Please don't use AI, okay? And describe what happened. Like literally description. What happened? What are the questions if you can remember everything? The second part would about be connecting with that, how you felt during the interview. Like how were your feelings? That question made you nervous. When you were speaking about this, you were anxious. When you're speaking about this, you were unsure. You missed some words. I don't know. Write about your feelings because writing about your feelings it's important because you can remember things better. And in the next stage, the third one, you're going to evaluate like what went well, what went bad comparing to how I felt during the interview, what was the good things and the bad things. It's almost like a retrospective. And you do that, and in the fourth step, you just reflect, you just think. Again, please don't use AI here. Try to exercise your brain to reflect about what happened, to reflect on the things that happened. If that was a important interview to you in a good or in a bad way, stay with that for a while reflecting. Go for a walk, go for running, stay with that in your mind, just you and your brain. Because the more you reflect about that, the more you are sending message to your brain, and this is neuroscience, okay, this is not opinion. The more you are sending messages to your brain that this is important, that you should improve on that your brain should take that as an important thing. And then finally, in the fifth step, you are going to just write down to you something you want to get better for next time, some actions. So when you're preparing for your next interview, look to those actions compared to the things that you note down, and I'm fully sure that you're going to feel much more prepared to your next job interview. And the more you do, the more you practice, the better you get on that. Because talking about ourselves can be quite hard, even more depending on your profile. If you're more introspective, talking about your achievements, about the things you did, the things you solved, that can be hard, I know. But it's the more you prepare, the more you're organized with your ideas, your stories, the better you will feel in the next interview. Do you remember I mentioned I have a bonus tip for when you are participating in the job interview itself? Yes, it's something that I always send to my friends, to my colleagues, and everyone who I know that is going to a job interview, internal interview or external interview. That is just, don't forget to smile. Super simple, right? But people get so nervous. They try to be a perfect version of themselves, and they get so concerned about that they just forget about the very small human thing that is smiling. Smiling when you're saying hi, smiling like in the beginning, and maybe when you're saying bye at the end of interview. I'm not saying that you should be smiling all the time. That would be super weird. Actually, there is a study. I took a note about that. I don't forget to mention to you because otherwise the tip about smiling can be a bit weird as well. But there is a study on the Journal of Social Psychology that the title is "Smiling in a Job Interview When Less is More." What they're basically saying that depending on the moment of the interview, if it's a more serious question about something that you solved, some data that you need to bring, how you solved something that is super connected to the role, and it's moment to show your techniques, what you are from, like on what you do, how you do that, how you solve problems. This is the moment you should not be smiling. You should be very, very strict to reply, to be concise, but also reply in a good way, to bring a good story, to bring good examples. But the point here with this smile is that this is a small thing that also says a lot about you when you are like starting the interview. I heard in an interview that I participated a few years ago that my eyes were shining when I was talking about some of the things that I did. And that happened because I am passionate about some of the things that I do, like leading teams, developing people in teams, managing projects, and making things be transformed from ideas to solutions. I heard that my eyes were shining during the interview. And that's something that is actually something super great. One of the best feedbacks I got in an interview ever. And that is interesting because it means that my facial expression, even my thoughts, my body, everything were connected to who I was, or who I was sh- sharing at the moment about myself. A bit of hard to explain, but the more you know what you are talking about, the more you can connect your brain and your heart with that. But then somehow people get so nervous, so concerned about being this perfect version, shining the words, that they forget this connection, the connection with who they are, in here, in the in the brain, the heart, on who they are behind that interview mask. And that is important. Just a smile is so human, so simple, and something that can change a lot the process for you. And I'm saying this even more during this moment where AI is present so much in the job interviews, in the job process overall. Being a human, showcasing who you are for real as a human, as a person on the other side, can be something great. I'm not here trying to be generic and saying that you should be a, again, back to RSA, I was saying, not be smiling and trying to be this weird professional just laughing on the things you did. I'm not talking about that. But the connection between the human on this side and the human on the other side doing the interview can be something quite important that many people forget. Good. And with that, we close our tips for today on job interviews. Of course, in around 30 minutes, it's impossible to deep dive in all the details, all the tips, but maybe there's something you want me to deep dive in another video, another content. Please let me know. I will be very glad on preparing that for you. But let me know. And don't forget to engage with the content because that says a lot to the algorithm that actually what I'm creating is relevant so it can go to other people as well. Thank you for staying with me and see you in the next episode.